The morning sun pushed through the clouds, soft and golden, lighting up the snow-covered land. The wind had quieted. Smoke rose slowly from the cabin chimney. Inside, Clara sat at the table, sewing a patch on Silas's coat. She worked slow, careful with each stitch. Silas stood near the window, watching the tree line. "They'll come soon," he said. Clara nodded. "I know." They had seen the signs. Hoof prints in the snow again, more than before. Silas's brother wasn't going to let go. He wanted the land. He wanted Silas gone. And now Clara was in the way. But Clara wasn't afraid anymore. Silas turned to her. "We could still run." She looked up. "Where?" "I've got friends in Colorado." "Maybe. Arizona. We could disappear." Clara kept stitching. "And when they find us there?" Silas didn't answer. He knew she was right. "We don't run," Clara said. "Not this time." Silas walked over and sat across from her. His wound was healing, though it still ached. He held his chest and watched her fingers move. Strong hands. Calm hands. A woman who had been through storms and still stood. He reached across the table and touched her hand. "If we make it through," he said, "I'll never leave your side again." Clara met his eyes. "You better not." They spent the next day preparing. Clara reinforced the windows with boards from the barn. Silas loaded the shotgun, then her father's old rifle. They stacked firewood inside, enough to last a week. They moved food into a back corner and kept water by the stove at night. They sat by the fire again, shoulders touching. They didn't speak much. Words weren't needed now. They had something stronger than words, trust. The next morning came. Quiet. Too quiet. Then hooves. 6 of them. Clara stood at the window. 3 riders. They've stopped near the creek. Silas stood beside her. "One of them's my brother." Clara narrowed her eyes. "The one in the gray coat?" Silas nodded. "Malcolm Mercer." The man looked proud, rich, cold. "A snake in boots." "He'll try to talk first," Silas said. "He always does. Acts like he's better than everyone." A voice called out, sharp and smooth. "Silas, you got 5 minutes." Clara cocked the shotgun. "He won't get 5. Silas stepped outside with the rifle. Clara stood just inside the doorway, shotgun ready. The snow crunched beneath Malcolm's boots as he walked toward the cabin alone. His coat was clean, silver buttons shining. His face was smug. "You look like hell, brother," Malcolm said. "You always liked the dirt more than money." Silas didn't smile. "You came to steal what ain't yours." Malcolm shrugged. "It's not about what's mine. It's about what's fair. You don't even want the land. You're hiding out here like a stray dog." Silas didn't move. "I want peace." "That's more than you ever wanted." Malcolm's face turned cold. "You think this woman's going to save you? You think she'd die for you?" Clara stepped outside now, shotgun aimed straight at Malcolm's chest. "No," she said, calm and clear. "But I'll kill for him." Malcolm laughed. "You got grit, miss. Shame you picked the wrong side." "You're on the wrong side of everything," Clara said. Malcolm's eyes hardened. He turned and whistled. 2 men rode in fast, guns drawn. Clara. And Silas fired. The first man dropped, screaming. The second dove behind a tree, firing back. Bullets tore into the snow, wood, and cabin wall. Clara and Silas dropped behind cover. The gunfire echoed through the hills. Silas fired again, hitting the second man in the leg. He fell. Howling. Malcolm ran behind the wagon. Clara ducked low, heart racing. "He's still out there," she whispered. Silas reloaded. "We end this." Now. They moved around the cabin side by side. The air was thick with gun smoke and cold wind. Clara spotted Malcolm behind the wagon, reloading his pistol. She didn't wait. She stepped out, gun raised. "Drop it!" she yelled. Malcolm turned, shocked. "Clara!" Silas shouted. Too late. Malcolm fired. The shot ripped through the air and missed. Clara pulled her trigger. The shotgun blast knocked Malcolm flat. Snow flew up. Silence. Then only the wind. Clara dropped the gun. Her hands were shaking. Silas rushed to her, grabbed her shoulders. "Are you hit?" She shook her head, tears running now. "No, I'm fine." He held her close. His arms were warm around her. She sobbed into his chest, not from fear but from the weight of years falling off her. It was over. Later that evening, they buried Malcolm behind the trees. The snow was quiet again, almost kind. Clara stood at the edge of the grave, eyes steady. "I never wanted this." "I know," Silas said, "but I don't regret it." He nodded. "Neither do I." They went back to the cabin. Silas lit the fire. Clara made coffee from the last bit of beans. They sat together at the table, watching the flames. He looked at her. "We're safe now," Clara smiled. "For now." He reached for her hand again. "You still got that ring?" She pulled it from her pocket. It was cold in her hand, but felt like home. "You still want me to wear it?" she asked. He smiled. "If you'll have me." Clara placed it on her finger. It fit just right. Spring came slow that year. Snow melted from the hills. The creek ran again, and green returned to the land. The cabin stood firm, smoke always rising. Clara planted seeds in the garden. Silas built a new fence. They worked side by side, sun on their backs. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they just stood together, watching the wind in the trees. They didn't need much. They had each other, and no one was ever going to take that away again. The rain was heavy that morning. It wasn't soft like spring rain. It hit the roof of the broken barn like angry fists. Water leaked through the cracks. Mud came in under the doors. The wind pushed hard, howling through the broken walls. Eli. Harper stood in the middle of the barn, holding a shovel like it was the only thing keeping him upright. His clothes were wet. His boots were torn. His face was tired and full of pain. Life had been beating him down for months now. That's when she came. She didn't knock. She didn't say hello. She walked right into the barn like she owned the storm. Her name was Maeve Callahan, the widow Callahan, the biggest woman in Dust Hollow. Not just tall, strong, wide-shouldered, with hands like iron and a voice that didn't ask for anything twice. Her coat was dripping with rain. Her hair, long and gray, flew in the wind like a flag in battle. She looked like a warrior who had already buried every man who dared cross her. She stared at Eli, standing in the broken barn, holding that shovel like a lost soldier. "I need a husband," she said, her voice like thunder. Eli blinked. He didn't understand. "And you," she added, stepping closer. "You need a strong daughter." Eli dropped the shovel. It clattered to the ground. His hands hung in the air, like he forgot what to do with them. No one had said anything like that to him before. Not ever. Maeve didn't wait for him to speak. "You're broke. You're beaten. You're more alone than a scarecrow in winter," she said. "I've got land, wood, food, and quiet. You've got nothing but your name and what's left of your hands. We can fix that." She pulled out a folded paper from her coat. The wind tried to grab it, but she held it tight. "This is a marriage contract. No kissing, no sweet words, no lies. Just work, just food, a roof, and maybe one day a girl who's strong enough to carry us both." Eli didn't move. The rain poured harder. The roof dripped like tears all around him. Maeve tossed the paper on a bale of hay. Then she turned and walked out, leaving muddy boot prints behind her like tracks from a wild beast. "You've got until sunset," she said over her shoulder. Then the offer's gone. Eli stood there frozen. He didn't know what shocked him more, the offer or the woman who made it. 2 months ago, Eli Harper had everything. A horse named Blue, a little brother named Luke, a ranch that had belonged to their father. He had hoped then life took it all. Blue fell in a ditch and broke its back. Luke drank too much one night and didn't wake up. The banker came the next morning with a smile and a paper that said the ranch was no longer his. Eli fought it, but the law didn't care about poor cowboys. Now he had nothing. And yet, a woman like Maeve Callahan came to him, not for love, but for something else. Something stronger. Survival. Why him? Because Eli was still honest. Even with dirt on his face and pain in his heart, he didn't lie. And in a town like Dust Hollow, honesty was rarer than gold. At evening, just before the sun touched the hills, Eli walked to Maeve's ranch. He had shaved, combed his hair with his fingers, cleaned his boots as best as he could. The contract was folded in his hand. His father's knife was strapped to his leg, not for show, but because it made him feel like a man again. Maeve stood on the porch with her arms crossed. Behind her, the stone house stood like a fortress. Wood was stacked tall against the wall. Fire smoke rose from the chimney. Eli walked up, his boots heavy in the wet ground. "I signed it," he said, holding out the paper. Maeve didn't take it. She just looked at him, slow and careful. Her eyes went from his boots to the way his shoulders sagged from too much pain. "You still want to die?" she asked, plain and cold. Eli blinked. "What? I'm not marrying a ghost," she said. "I need someone who will stay. Someone who won't leave when things get hard. Someone who will fight for her. Our daughter when the world tries to crush her." Eli took a slow breath. "I'm not leaving." Maeve nodded. That was all. 2 days later, they stood under a crooked horseshoe nailed to a post. A preacher who owed Maeve 3 favors said the words. No guests, no rings. Just mud, wind, and 2 tired souls. When the preacher said, "Do you take this man?" Maeve cut him off. "I do. Let's get to it." The town talked, of course. "She's lost her mind. He's nothing but bones and sadness." She could have had better. Maeve didn't care. And Eli? He didn't care either. That night, he slept on the floor of her house. Maeve didn't tell him to. He just couldn't bring himself to lie in a bed that wasn't his. Not yet. Maeve dropped a thick blanket beside him and said nothing. They didn't talk about love. They talked about work, about chores, about chopping wood and fixing fences. But in that silence, something began. Not love, but maybe the start of it. Eli Harper worked harder than he ever had in his life. From the moment the sun rose to the moment it fell behind the hills, he was fixing, chopping, pulling, lifting. Maeve didn't treat him like a husband. She treated him like a worker. And he didn't mind. It made sense. He didn't come there for love. He came because he had nowhere else to go. She never told him, "Thank you." She didn't smile. But she noticed everything. One morning, she brought him a hot bowl of stew. It was thick and spicy and warmed his whole chest. He looked at her. "Why do you want a daughter so bad?" Maeve sat down beside him on the porch. Her face was still, her eyes cold. "Because the world was cruel to me," she said. "Too tall, too loud, too smart. I was told to be quiet, told I'd never be loved unless I became smaller." Eli looked out at the field. Frost sparkled on, the grass like broken glass. "You don't want her to shrink." "I want her to swing," Maeve said. That silence between them lasted a long time. But it wasn't awkward. It was heavy like a door slowly opening between 2 locked hearts. One night, Eli was outside chopping wood in the dark. The stars were out, cold and sharp. His hands were blistered, his shirt damp with sweat. Then he saw it headlights cutting through the trees. A truck, big, loud, unfamiliar. Maeve stepped out of the house, a rifle hanging from her shoulder. "Stay back," she said. Not the truck stopped. A man got out. Jared Holt, Maeve's dead husband's cousin. Rich, proud, mean as a copperhead. He stepped forward, smiling like a man used to getting his way. "You think that paper you signed means this land is yours now?" he asked. His eyes flicked to Eli. "Or are you just playing house again?" Maeve didn't flinch. "You've got 10 seconds to leave." Jared laughed. Eli didn't wait. He dropped the axe and walked forward. Calm, quiet, dangerous, he stood. Between Jared and Maeve, the silence was thick. Jared looked him over like a piece of bad meat. "You don't scare me." Eli didn't raise his voice. "I don't have to scare you. I just have to be the reason you don't come back." Something changed in Jared's face. His smile broke. He backed up, slowly. He got into his truck and drove off into the dark. Maeve stepped beside Eli, watching the road. "You meant that?" she asked. "I don't say things twice," Eli said. Night. Maeve didn't hand him a blanket for the floor. She opened her bedroom door. He didn't ask questions. He walked in. They didn't talk. They didn't touch much. But he slept beside her for the first time. And it was the first good sleep he'd had in months. The next morning, she woke before him, started the fire, fed the chickens, chopped kindling. When he came into the kitchen, half awake and unsure, she handed him a plate of cornbread. "Eat," she said, like nothing had changed. But everything had died from that day on. Things shifted. They still worked hard, still didn't talk much. But something quiet lived between them now. Something solid. She didn't want poems. He didn't bring flowers. But he carried heavy things. Without asking, she packed his lunch without a word. That was their way. One day, while they were fixing the bar roof together, she asked, "Why don't you drink?" Eli wiped his brow. "Because when my brother drank, I bled." She didn't say anything, just nodded, then hammered the next nail. Later, he asked, "What happened to your husband?" She didn't flinch. "Rode out drunk in a blizzard." Thought. He could beat it. He didn't. Again, no sadness, just facts. Like how they both loved with truth, not tears. Then one afternoon, something happened that truly shook Eli. Maeve had gone into town to trade seed and leather. He stayed behind to check the east pasture. That's when he found it. A note, pinned to the fence with a rusted nail. Written in red ink, "You took what ain't yours. I'll be back." No name, but Eli didn't need one dot. It was Jared's handwriting. Eli's stomach went cold. He didn't panic. He didn't run. He just burned the note in the stove before Maeve got back. She didn't need to worry. Not yet. But that night, he sat on the porch sharpening the axe until it shined like a mirror. Not for the work. For the war he knew was coming. Maeve stepped out, saw the firelight in his eyes. "What happened?" "Nothing," he said. She knew he was lying. But she didn't push. She just brought 2 cups of tea and sat beside him as the night grew cold. That night, in the dark, she reached for his hand under the blanket. And this time, he held hers back. 2 weeks later, Maeve missed the morning chores. That had never happened. Eli found her in bed, pale and sweating, her hand on her belly. "Wrong?" he asked, panic rising in his chest. She looked up, her voice soft like a breeze. "I think I'm pregnant." Eli stood still. The world seemed to spin around him. "You don't have to say anything," she whispered. But Eli knelt beside the bed, took her hand, and kissed her fingers. I told you I wouldn't leave, he said. Maeve didn't cry. She never did. But her eyes softened, and her grip on his hand tightened. Eli smiled. Guess we're getting that daughter. The town couldn't stop talking after the news broke. Maeve Callahan? Pregnant? At her age? It can't be his baby. She just married him for protection. She's gone mad. The whispers followed her everywhere. From the general store to the feed shed. But Maeve didn't shrink. She never had. She walked through town like a storm wrapped in skin head high, jaw set, belly growing strong. Eli walked beside her like a shadow made of steel. He didn't hold her hand. He didn't kiss her in public. But his presence was enough. When Mrs. Talbot from the store made a comment about miracle babies being born in the mud, Eli didn't yell. He just placed the sack of potatoes down gently, turned and said, "Say something like that again, and I'll forget I ever learned how to be gentle." The store went silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Maeve didn't thank him. She just hooked her pinky around his as they walked out and sighed, "You're good at that." But peace doesn't last long in a place like Dust Hollow. Not when men like Jared Holt still roam the back roads with hate in their hearts. Jared returned in the middle of the night. No. Warning. Just fire. Eli woke first. Smoke. Heat. He looked out the window and saw the east fence burning. Flames danced. In the dark like devils. "Maeve," he shouted. "Stay inside." But she didn't listen. She never did. She stormed out in her nightgown, barefoot, a rifle in her hand, and her eyes wild like lightning. Her belly was round now, but that didn't stop her. She looked like a mountain on fire. Jared was out there with 3 other men, drunk, laughing. One of them tossed another bottle of oil onto the fence. It exploded in sparks. "I told you," Maeve shouted into the smoke. "This land is mine." Jared stepped forward, face red, voice sharp. "That baby yours, Maeve? Or is it this fool's? Doesn't matter. Neither of you will see winter." That's when Eli stepped into the firelight, barefoot, shirtless, blood on his knuckles from smashing the window to reach the hose. He looked different now. Not broken. Not lost. Just done. "I'm done playing humble," Eli said. His voice was low, steady. Maeve tossed him the rifle. He caught it with one hand. What happened? Next wasn't a shootout. It was a warning to the world that Eli didn't shoot first. He waited, calm as death. And when one of Jared's men raised a pistol, Eli shot him in the leg. The second man raised a knife. Eli shot him in the shoulder. The third man dropped his weapon and ran. Only Jared was left shaking alone. Eli stared at him. "Go, and if you bring fire again, you won't limp home next time." Jared opened his mouth like he wanted to say something clever. Then Maeve stepped up beside Eli, a second rifle in hand, her belly round, her eyes deadly. Jared left. He didn't ride. He walked. Slow. Humiliated. They stood there in silence, watching the night swallow him whole. When they finally walked back inside, the fire still glowing outside, Maeve sat down at the kitchen table. Her hands were shaking now. She stared at the wood floor like it might open and take her away. Eli wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. He poured her a cup of water and knelt beside her. "It's over," he said softly. She looked at him, really looked. Her eyes were softer now, like glass before it breaks. "You could have killed him," she said. "I would have," Eli answered, "if he touched you." Maeve didn't blink. Then she whispered, "I'm scared? Of him?" She shook her head slowly. "No, of how much I love you." Eli didn't speak. He just leaned forward and kissed her forehead, slow, gentle, like a promise that didn't need words. And when their foreheads touched, Maeve whispered again, Marry me? He smiled. You already did. Then do it right, he nodded. I'll even get you a ring this time. They married again, that fall dot no preacher, dot no crowd, dot this the two of them barefoot in the back pasture, standing in a circle of wildflowers and dry grass. Eli had carved a ring from antler. Maeve wore her hair down for the first time in years. He held her hand and said, You're my fight now. She said, You're my home. After that, they didn't talk about love anymore. They didn't need to. It was in every meal they shared, every fence they fixed, every quiet look across the dinner table. But one thing was clear. Eli had changed. He wasn't the broken man who stood in the barn with nothing left. He was something else now. Something strong, something dangerous. He had something to protect, and he would dot no matter the cost.